Hi, and welcome back to God's Golden Acres. I'm Kim, and I'm going to take you on a little bit deeper dive into bottle feeding a calf. So here I have a standard bottle with a standard nipple. She is a little bit older when we got her. Newborn calves, you might have to use a goat nipple. Some do, some don't. We keep one on hand, even though we don't even have cows that are giving babies, because my dad is bringing all of his bottle calves to our house. We are currently using Land O'Lakes formula because that's what came with her when we got her. So this actually came from our mentors. If you've watched my videos on the strawberry farming, they had a bottle calf that needed just a little bit of extra. She can't be put into a herd setting. So she came here. So this is 60 ounces of water mixed with 12 ounces, a full level cup, I think it's 12 ounces, of dry calf formula. And also, it's important to look at the nipple here because we have it cut. When you get to a larger calf, it's good to cut the nipple because they just drink that much faster. They get frustrated on a smaller nipple. In the same way, if you're bottle feeding a baby, you have like size 0 nipples for newborns, 1, 2, and 3. And a lot of breastfed babies won't necessarily switch, but if you're fully bottle feeding, a lot of times you will switch up to that 2 or 3 level just for the ease of eating. Why wouldn't you if you didn't have to worry about breastfeeding or something else in the way? There's no reason to slow them down if you don't need to. It is windy and has cooled back down, but that doesn't really affect the way they eat. It affects her hip a little bit because she has a bad hip. So just like any animal with a bad hip or injury of some kind. So Lizzie and Wobbles are actually well matched because they both have hip injuries. Lizzie's is from her breeder. They nothing wrong. They didn't abuse her, don't get me wrong. But they had her in the back of a truck training her for herding and farm work. And lots of dogs sit in the back of trucks for that type stuff, right? Well, she jumped out and broke her leg. And part of that was probably just not paying good enough attention. But sometimes you can sneeze and the dog can get away from you. Wobbles is most likely a birth injury, but it could also be a birth defect. We don't really know, and it's not worth investigating at this time. Cow does come up to the fence when we come out here, even with these two crazies. This one doesn't bark at her anymore, at least not with me. She does with Andrew, which is funny. And they are becoming good friends. All right, here you go. So you'll want, with the, get down, dogs. With the open nipple, you have to get it in their mouth first before you turn it down, or you'll lose a lot. We have dogs who will lick the face of the cow. Because they do drip a little bit, just like any messy baby. Do you like that? So we do have some grain in there for her to eat. She is relatively uninterested. This one's more interested than this one in the grain. She kind of is too, but she's also a lot shorter, so it's harder for her to get. So you can see that she's already drank quite a bit of that. You might have to look closely because it's not much of a color difference on the phone. But you can see she just downs it. And you don't want to dilute their feed or give them extra because they seem hungry. Calves will always seem hungry, but they will get diarrhea if you feed them too much in a day, which can be life-threatening, especially for newborns. She would probably be fine because we would just have to adjust. She's old enough, but you do have to be careful of that and watch for it. So I do need to clean out here, but for the first few days she actually pooped every time I came out, which was really helpful because I got to see what it looked like. Are you getting the cow, Jade? I'm glad you guys are best friends. I personally feed through a fence, and partially this is because I have little kids. You don't have to. Some cows are more aggressive. She's never aggressive with the bottle because of her leg. But a lot of calves will like keep wanting more and will try to push you over. I don't cuddle my cows. I don't cuddle them. I pat them on the head and kind of desensitize them, but I do not. See? Almost done. All right, so I'll push her in. I'll put it straight up so she can get the last little bit. And I don't like to rear their necks back like this constantly. And in a minute, you'll hear it, just like with the baby. You'll hear when it's empty. Oh, there it goes. And see, she would have kept going. But she doesn't actually need more. And mothers would kick them off too. All right, are they just going to play? Apparently she enjoys the attention from the dogs. I don't think this is always going to be true. And she's not always going to be in a place where the dogs can so easily just be hanging out with her. She'll go down to a different pasture. Jade, are you stuck? All right, 1 second. Tell everyone you're fine as you go back in with the cow. Hey, Jade. Jade, come. Come on, get out. She is part blue heeler, so she should have some cow sense, but I don't necessarily want to teach the cow and the dog to play. But this is actually, it's got bent on the end, and so those lower quadrants. Jade, all done. Come on. It's got her head stuck in it. Silly dog. Come on. You lick your butt. Don't lick my face. Ugh. You ornery dog. Are you safe from the fence? Did you get rescued? So yeah, anyway. For proper cow behavior, I don't want my cow rubbing up against me. Ever. Did you see the way she was headbutting the dog? I don't want that to happen to me. Because I know a cow will be much stronger than me. And it sounds like a horse that kind of leans into you to push you over. Cows will get into you to like play and different things and kind of knock you down and really, really roughhouse. So I don't want my cow to do that to me. So I don't let them do it to me when they're little. Petting is fine. Being able to touch their feet or their udder as a dairy cow, of course. Right? Being halter broke is still totally different than ever them leaning on you. So that is just one thing that's like definitely do not let your cows do, in my opinion. Some people do. Some people cuddle their cows. It's just not safe. You can take the risk. Like, people take risk every day. You know, people buy motorcycles. People go rock climbing, free rope, and they go skydiving. Like, you can take that. Like, you can do it. And if you do that on your farm, I probably won't take my kids out there. Hey, Mom, look at my shirt. I have to take a moment. I try not to throw them on camera too much, not hide them. Like, my kids exist. But also, I'm not throwing a camera in their face. I'm going to pause the camera to talk to them because they deserve that, right? But yeah, there are risks I'm not willing to take, especially with my kids' ages. So the cow playing with us, off limits. Leaning against us, off limits. Head scratches, being able to touch feet, being able to touch their tail, that desensitizing stuff, totally. Absolutely will do it. But that's something I'm doing to the cow, not that the cow is doing to me. And they're pretty smart animals in some ways. In other ways, they're not so smart animals, but they're pretty smart. For as far as like, this is how I behave with this other animal. I should not let her do that to the dog either. Which is also why I called the dog away. That was the first time that they really got playful with each other, because they've been getting used to each other. Wobbles actually doesn't usually let Lizzie lick her face like that, because she's like, why is this dog licking me? So they're really getting used to each other, so I'm going to have to like enforce some more rules. But that's how it goes, right? They don't like each other, then they kind of tolerate each other, then they get used to each other, and then they kind of like each other. So then you have different rules, like don't bark at the cow. Well, now she doesn't bark at the cow. Now don't play with the cow. Because I don't want her to hurt Lizzie. Because Lizzie's 7 and has a hip injury that still bothers her sometimes, even though that happened at 7 weeks old. So it's a safety thing. It's also what you're willing to do on your farm, what risk you're willing to take, and the individuals on your farm, right? Wobbles is actually probably a cow that's better because she has an injury and has a weaker back leg, that she's not going to necessarily lean on you as hard, or she's easier to control because you can always just pop her in that back leg when she's big to get off of you. Where other cows who are much stronger and much healthier wouldn't be able to be handled in that way. But I don't want to have to pop her in her injury to keep ourselves safe and to keep the kids safe. So we're not going to start those habits anyway. I know, dogs. All right. Thanks for being with us today. I'll be praying for you. God bless.